now entering the Horror Sanctum.
Hello and welcome back to the Horror Sanctum podcast. I'm Jay with John, Kellen, and TJ. And I'm not quite sure what the opposite of a humble brag is, but I think this is it. So I've read several books in my life, mostly Goosebumps, but only 2 times, that's 2, have I read a book before I watched its film adaptation. The first was Annihilation, starring Natalie Portman, directed by one of my favorites, Alex Garland. I read the book first, then watched the movie. The second is this week's movie, Clown in a Cornfield, written by our pal Adam Cesare. Is that how you say his name? Caesar.
I think that's right.
Yeah. The movie is directed by Eli Craig, and needless to say, since this movie is still in theaters, there will be spoilers.
And spoilers aplenty. I want you to use your imagination right now and imagine a small town in America where the kids are being terrorized by a clown. Never been done before, but here we are in Kettle Springs for Clown in a Cornfield. Based on the book by Adam Cesare that I think me and Jay both have a copy of, both have a signed copy of. If I could turn the pages, look at that. By Adam
That's the
himself.
humble brag I mentioned in the opening, what Kelly just did there.
Super great guy, super nice. Said he would come on the show, so we will hold him to that. But yeah, Clown in the Cornfield. So basically, Quinn, who is the main star of what is now a trilogy, hoping to be a quartet. Her and her father moved to the small town of Kettle Springs, which is like most small towns in America that were built around a factory. This factory just happens to be a syrup factory, Bay Pen syrup. And when the factory burns down, hard times fall on the town, and a masked vigilante dressed like the mascot for the Bay Pen syrup factory starts killing the youngins. It's a tale as old as time. It's always the kids' fault. But was super excited for this movie. I've read the book. I read all 3 books so far. Read them way back. My wife is a librarian, and she knows that most of the books that I like are horror themed. So that's kind of, if you look at my Goodreads, that's most of what the books are. They're very horror leaning. And this is no exception. This is as close to a classic slasher as you can get book wise. For the movie, I think they did a really good job of keeping the feel, but they definitely left out a lot of what makes this book special. Not to say this is a bad movie. This is a good, fun slasher film. We've talked about other films in the past. I can't remember any off the head, but this would be a good introduction to the slasher genre because it's not over the top. The gore's not, super in your face.
When evil lurks, that was one that would be a good introduction to horror. Where evil lurks, or when evil lurks? Yeah,
when evil lurks.
That's a good gateway horror movie. Right?
No, I don't think so. I don't know.
Just right in there. Yeah.
I don't think it is. It's a good gateway if you're a sadist. But this movie is a good gateway into the slasher genre for a younger audience, for your Gen Z audience, because that's what this is. These are Gen Z kids that are in the middle of what turns out to be a slasher fest over one evening. The book, like I said, it has a lot more building of the characters. It has a lot more intensity to it. There's a scene in the movie that is close to what happens in the book, where they're all in a field for the 100th anniversary Founders Day celebration, where all the kids get together after they've done their Founders Day parade, which obviously goes sideways. That also happens in the book. But in the book, a lot more happens to these kids. It's a lot more violence happens. At one point, the barn that they're all trying to seek refuge in, while the clowns, plural, you find that out fairly quickly in the movie, are terrorizing them. At one point, they set the barn on fire to basically burn all the kids to death. I thought that was a missed opportunity because they had it all set up. It was right there, and they just let it go. Biggest spoiler is what I just said. This is multiple clowns. The whole movie is around the premise of, imagine if your parents had enough of your bullshit. And instead of sending you to your room, grounding you, turning off your electronics, they just murdered you. They that would cleanse the youth and start over. And that's what the whole Clown in a Cornfield premise is. That being said, the book does a good job with the amount of time that they're given. I feel like, and we don't say this often, I feel like this movie deserved about another 20 minutes. I think if they would have developed the characters a little more, there's obviously the love interest between the two boys, Rust and Cole, and they develop their characters a lot more. In this one, they don't really do a good job of making you feel for Cole the way you kind of do in the book, that he's kind of more a victim of circumstance, of being the rich kid, of having to live up to expectations. But they do a good job in the movie with the time they're given of hinting at it, and at one point outright telling you that, oh, by the way, they're in love with each other. They just won't admit it. But again, that's where the book really stands apart from the movie. Is just in developing that story. So my hope is that with the success of this one, because for the budget that it had, I think $1 million budget, and it did 3.6 million in its first weekend, and it's still selling tickets. I still see Adam Cesare posting people with their books at the theater, not throwing popcorn like Chicken Jockey in Minecraft, but it's cool it's got to be cool as an author to see your book being held by somebody as they're sitting watching the movie based on it. So I'm hoping that it did well enough to get a second film, and I hope they develop it closer to the book, because the second book I think is better than the first. Spoilers. It gets deeper into the weeds. Actually got to talk to Adam Cesare about it at FrankenCon, and I won't say anything that he said about when it was happening, but it definitely mirrors some of societal woes. And then the third book is my absolute favorite. I'll go ahead and say that right now. I think the way that he develops the story in the third book is fantastic. So I would love to see the other books get their movie adaptation as they deserve. The characters in this are good. I think the girl that plays Quinn, I think she could be a good final girl for the franchise. I think she kind of has that. I don't know if it's as much of an it factor as the girl from the Terrifier series. Something special about her, and I can't think. I'm bad with names, so you just have to help me out.
Lauren Lavera.
Lauren Lavera. She's great as a final girl in that. I hope if they follow the books, they'll give her more of an intensity like she has in the Terrifier, and I think that this could be a more PG version of that series. They're both clown based, both have a girl who is fighting said clown, so I think they could definitely develop that. But overall, I enjoyed it. It has a 74% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's $1.36. But overall, I mean, it's a fun film. Some of the one-liners, some of the jokes that pop up, I actually laughed out loud in the theater. I thought it was pretty wittily written at certain times. Some of it was a little flat just because it was just maybe felt a little out of place, but overall, I think it's a fun film. I think it's worth a watch. Like I said, if you're a horror fan and you're with somebody who's not so much, and you want to just introduce them to a fun flick that they can get behind, I think this would be a great entrance into horror for those people. So yeah.
And I agree totally with everything Kellen just said. And I can't often say that. So that's that's a happy surprise. Yeah, I mean, we got to hang out with Adam Cesare, me and friend of the show, Brad Fowler, Slaughterhouse creator. We got to go to the Q&A and the screening they did at a little art house theater there in Knoxville, and it was pretty well sold out, or just about sold out. Had some good interaction. I didn't realize until I got to ask some questions in the Q&A that Adam Cesare, also a former fellow high school English teacher. So we got that connection going, and I can see it now. Just his personality. He's got the kind of personality that would work good with teenagers, and that's the audience that he's writing for now, and it makes a lot more sense. When a lot of people say YA literature, there's a wide swath of that. I mean, that can be anything from Goosebumps to Harry Potter to the Divergent series, and then some stuff that's basically adult stuff is just more fantastical than, your standard stuff that comes out as adult fiction. But I have not read the book. I may, now that I hear that the book series is as good as it is, and usually the books are better than the movies just because of the nature of adaptation, right? Everybody that's read a book of a movie, especially if you read the book first, you typically like the book first just because you got so much more world building, so much more character development, all the things, some subplots get lost in the mix. But for what this adaptation is intended to be, which is, I think, two parts. I think it's an homage to the 80s slasher, but it's with a new coat of paint for Gen Z on top of it. And I believe that the book series has a little bit more kind of social, current political commentary that they kind of excised a lot of. There's maybe little hints of it in there, mostly with just the interplay between the boomers and the Gen Zers, right? We hate those stupid kids, they're the downfall of society. I wish it'd be like it was in my day. As we're all in our 40s now, I think we we kind of feel the tide turning that way a little bit in our thinking too. So I guess it's just a generational thing. The thing I didn't see coming in this film that was a pleasant surprise for me was that it not only owes some of its DNA to the 80s slasher, but also the 70s. Uh, the whole town is evil folk horror, like the Wicker Man and Messiah of Evil. A lot of those, those older things, early 80s even, where the whole town is just this evil cult type thing, and you don't really realize it to the end kind of thing. I appreciate that. I think the last really great instance of that, spoiler alert for people that haven't seen the whole Coronado trilogy, is Hot Fuzz. I think does that as good as anything.
Okay, sorry. Sidebar here. I watched a video today of Simon Pegg because he's on the press tour for Mission Impossible, and they were making him pick his movies. Do you know which
Yeah.
one he chose over all the other ones?
Probably not Shaun of the Dead if you're telling
Run,
me.
Fat Boy, run.
That was the first one he said no to. No, World's End.
World's
Really?
End.
He
Okay.
picked that over Paul, over Hot Fuzz, over Shaun of the Dead, and the Fat Boy, Run, and Spaced.
That's crazy.
Those are the ones that was up against. I'm like, yeah, I thought for sure it would have been Shaun of the Dead or Hot Fuzz, but no, it was
Well-
World's End. And I like World's End, but that was just I didn't.
It's
That's
the
not where
weird
I thought
one.
he would say. Yeah,
that
It's
that
the obvious
character,
weakest of the trilogy.
Yeah,
Right.
that
Not
character
debatable.
might have been more fun to play for him though, because it's less like himself.
yeah, that
probably.
may have been it. Yeah, it was just
'Cause,
interesting.
actor choices. Sometimes the more fun acting role is the thing that's maybe not the best movie.
Well, he can still be wrong.
Right. That's also true. That's still a good movie. I need to rewatch it. I got the trilogy, I think, on Blu-ray. So, but yeah, this movie, it is interesting that after like as we of our generation were growing up, the only scary clown really was Tim Curry and the Stephen King 1990 It adaptation. That was like the definitive scary clown. There was a couple not so great ones in the 80s that didn't really make it into the mainstream, but now with Terrifier, with this, with the new It movies and the series coming soon, it's like choose your own scary clown adventure. And
The one that Kellen just did a short on.
which one was he just
Stitches.
Stitches. I
Oh,
haven't
yeah.
seen Stitches.
Is
I
that the one
remember
with
that more
Fuck
than
the,
it, nerds.
is that the one with the Irish clown? He's like Irish or Scottish or something.
He's like English.
I saw
yeah.
that once. I remember that movie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he falls over a dishwasher and gets impaled.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. That's a good way to die. I've nearly died similar ways in my own kitchen. But yeah, I mean, I really appreciate the homages in this film. I appreciate the fact that, kind of like the Scream movies, anybody can be this clown, right? As long as you just make it a suit and a mask, and anybody can dress up like it. I love that Will Sasso is in this film and that he plays the sheriff. I love Will Sasso and everything. I know he's most famous for his Mad TV days, but to me, his most funniest things have really come after that, with his impressions and all the stuff he does on podcasts, and he'll just show up in a little bit role here and there. Anytime I see Will Sasso, it's a good day at the movies. Love that guy. I think he does a better Jesse Ventura impression than Jesse Ventura, and I've seen him do it to Jesse Ventura, which is like parallel worlds colliding. I don't even
Are
know
you
what to
talking
think
about the wrestler or the governor of Minnesota?
I'm talking about both the wrestler and the governor of Minnesota.
It's so great. Anyway, not to get derailed with the ADHD Will Sasso conversation, but uh, yeah, I mean, there could be a little more character development, I guess, in some areas there. I'm sure it was in the book and just didn't have time. But for what this movie is, I think it does it perfectly. I think it is a great, if not an introduction to slashers, or kind of the modern take on slashers to a Gen Z audience. It's very much for kids that are teenagers or early 20 somethings today. It is very much for that audience, and I think that's the audience it's written for. I think that's the audience it's going to most appeal to. It also appeals to us and in between, because it has enough of the homages to the things that we grew up on that we still can appreciate it. So I think it has all the DNA to be a successful series. And for the uh, distribution company, IFC, this is an IFC distributed film, it was the highest returning opening weekend at $3.6 million that they've had of any theatrical thing, because, of course, they're a smaller label and they do more of this limited theatrical run. And then, kind of gradually, if it does well, they'll put it in a few more theaters. So hopefully, this thing lingers around for a few more weeks, at least into the summer, to kind of get that word of mouth and grow a little bit more, to make it a no-brainer to do another one of these. Because one of the good things about a slasher film, even in 2025, is you can make them on the cheap. $1 million, there's people doing it for a quarter of that. I mean, Terrifier 2 was done for a quarter of that. You get $1 million, you can make a solid slasher film that can compete as good as any on the market, I think. And I think this one does that for my money. But John, what do you think?
I like the movie. Uh, it's not. I think the biggest thing I'll say at first is I think the problem is it should be a TV show. It should be like an HBO series or a Netflix series. I think the problem is, like, you have these books. I've never read the books, but there's so much material. It's hard to capture that in a movie. It always is. And I think a lot of people have learned that, but unfortunately that's just kind of how the budgets go. Sometimes you don't dictate those things. It's a conventional story. We've seen it before. You know, you've got the group of teens in a town, you've got the new girl, you've got the whole thing where they kind of like her, they kind of want her in the group, she likes someone in the group, they're kind of hazing her, they're kind of not. Um, Most of the actors are good. The lead girl who played Quinn was really good. I liked her. I thought that Will Sasso and Kevin Durant, I like them. I think they're playing a bit of like a caricature in a way. Like, it's like Will Sasso is kind of, it's just, I think it's just knowing like Will Sasso's humor. He's good. He's just, it's hard to take him seriously because it's Will Sasso. And then Kevin Durant always has this way of acting that's so strange. He's very odd. Kevin Durant is like a really weird person. I feel like in real life he's just an odd dude. So I mean, he was in that show Lock and Key. He was unique in that show. And it's not, I wouldn't even say that it's bad acting. It's just there's something about his acting that when I watch it, I feel like I'm supposed to be watching a TV show versus a movie. Um, it's shot well. It looks like a lot of 90s slashers. I thought the budget was good. It looked great visually. The kills were all really cool. The kill where the kid runs into the chainsaw in the field is crazy as hell. I thought, you know, just the fact that that scene of getting chased by those clowns and in the cornfield was terrifying. Just watching that, I was like, this would be horrifying in real life, right? So that
And
was,
whoever was wearing those clown suits, some of them were hella strong.
yeah. I mean, it was, I thought that there was a lot of positivity with like the kills and the way they set things up. I thought the motivation for why they were doing it was lame. And I do, and I'll say that what I'll say is I understand that in the book it's probably more detailed. I'm watching the movie. I think just what it was presented in the film, it was kind of lame. The idea of we're gonna kill kids just because they're different and troublemakers. Like most slashers to me are best as a revenge story. That's kind of the idea. And I feel like if they had tweaked it just a bit to where all of the friendos were seeking revenge against the kids who were somehow tied to deaths of their kids, it would have probably made more sense because just the idea that like the mayor is going to kill his son because he's a troublemaker. I mean, come on, like that's
The book's a little bit different than that. Also, thank you. You were the first person to say fucking friendo this entire episode.
oh
I've been waiting.
Which I learned in the Q&A. I didn't realize this. He got that from No Country for Old Men.
Really?
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. I mean, I just think that the motivation is a little silly. I mean, I don't want to say it didn't ruin anything for me. I think when you like take it back, it's like really like they're killing for that reason. I mean, I guess there's worse reasons in slasher films. I feel like revenge is always the best thing, and I know there was some element of revenge with the brother or something there. So I apologize. I'm probably fucking up a lot of points from the book that probably were there. I'm just basing on the movie.
Well, this isn't a book podcast. This is not a book
Right.
podcast. Sure.
And that's a great
Yeah.
point is that you haven't read the book, so
Yeah.
your whole point is from just the movie, so it's a better perspective to have because to your point, a lot of the stuff that explains why they would get to that point is in the book. It does definitely explain why they would have it up to here with these kids.
The one, yeah, and see that makes total sense, and that's kind of what I felt after watching it. I felt like, this would have been great as like an HBO Max series or a Netflix series. Take your time, get to know the characters. The weird thing for me, and I was 50-50 on whether I was going to bring this up, but I have to. So as I'm watching this movie, like halfway in, I'm like, why is this familiar? And then it hits me. This is very similar to Slender Man, a movie that my friends and I made 11 years ago. In that, what I mean by a small town,
Plug the movie. Is it available
Yeah.
on YouTube?
it is available on YouTube.
We'll post the link this week.
Has anybody
I'll
here
for it.
seen it?
No, it's a piece
I
of
have.
crap.
I
It's a
watched
piece of.
it.
Oh,
I
you
watched
did
the
watch
whole
it?
thing. I watched the whole thing.
So, okay,
He's
I
doing
didn't
a
hate
short
it.
on it. He's
It
doing
was
a short
better
on it
than-
next week.
It was better than some of the movies we've reviewed on here.
it's weird because the new girl in the town, the friends, the cult of Slender Man, the way they killed the kid in this movie, the first friend who thinks they're pranking him and he's going around the house. We shot a scene just like that in Slender Man, and so it's different, but it was enough to where when I'm watching it, I was like, I almost text my buddy and I didn't yet, but I was gonna be like, dude, like, why is this so similar? And I'm not saying we got ripped off. I'm not insinuating that. It was so strangely similar that I was like, oh my God, why is that? I've seen this before. So I don't know. If I ever meet Adam again, I'm going to have to figure out a way to ask him that without coming across like an asshole. And I'm just going to be like, did you randomly see this movie on YouTube or something? I'm speculating. I
mean,
know it's not the same thing.
Sometimes just a good idea is in the ether, and it's whoever catches it.
Right. And like I said, I'm halfway joking. I know this is a different film. I'm not insinuating that in any way Slender Man, this movie and series is way better. So, but overall,
Adam Cesare is going to hear this podcast and go, he knows.
Now he's never going to come on the show.
overall though, I did really like it. And, yeah, I mean, I'll watch again. I'll buy the movie. So overall, I
steelbook.
enjoyed it. Yeah.
There's a steelbook coming. So yeah, Kellen's right. I own it. I've read it recently. And as I said in the opening, the difference between the two. So I said Annihilation. I'd read the book first. I liked the movie just as well, if not more, because there were so many original elements there. All right, like there's all these creatures, these plants fusing with other animals. It's a little bit harder to visualize in a book where here's a clown, he's in a pork pie hat, and he's killing teenagers. Because of that, I like the book better than this. But that's a detriment because if I hadn't read the book first, like you guys, it'd be totally different. I would look at it completely differently.
Yeah. I have one question for the two people who have
Well,
read the book.
We can't spoil it because I even wrote in my notes. We can't spoil the book too.
Okay.
No,
All
go ahead and ask.
fair.
Okay.
You sure? All right.
Okay.
I was just curious if in the book, when the kids burn down the factory, which is essentially the life's blood of the town, so without that, the town dies, right? Basically. Did somebody die in the factory? Because that would have upped the stakes, I feel like.
Yeah. Kellen can go into detail.
I don't remember if anybody died. I feel like it was like just an accident and then the factory burned down. I don't think that.
I thought it was Cole's sister.
No, I don't think she died in that. I think she died at another time.
Okay.
I'll go back and look through the book.
The opening
I was just
on
curious
the
because
first
that would
party.
have upped the stakes more for the movie, I feel like.
Yeah. And I just maybe it wasn't his sister, but in my head that was part of it. Okay, but Kellen will reread that in a day or so and get back to us. So John, I thought you were going to pick up on one of my notes, which is the Kevin Durand and Will Sasso. When we were talking to Adam, I said, "Is Kevin Durand the sheriff?" And he's like, "No, Will Sasso." That was wrong for me.
Yeah.
They should have been switched because Kevin, especially knowing what I know from the book, when you read that character in the book, you picture someone. You know who I pictured was his last name's Dane. He was in ER or one of those medical shows. Eric Dane. Someone like that. And Kevin Durand has kind of a similar look. Even like someone who has played like CJ, that played Jason Voorhees. Like someone like that, tall, menacing, not. And Will Sasso's lost a lot of weight, but not someone pudgy and, that's still there for comedic relief. The whole book makes it sound like a more intimidating person. Who's more intimidating out of those two, It reminded me a lot, and I said this from the jump, just from the previews and reading the book. I text Kellen, I'm like, this feels a lot like Thanksgiving to me.
Yeah.
And
even
the movie looks that way, right? Like the dark tones. You said you like the Quinn character. She reminded me of Rachel Ziegler. I don't know why. I don't know if anyone else has seen Y2K, where she is kind of essentially a final girl, but they remind me a lot of one another. But she was good. I try to see if I'd seen her in anything else, but I don't think there was. It didn't reinvent the wheel, right? Like we're not sitting there and texting everybody like, you have got to see this movie like we did with, what was that one that Kellen loved, Abigail? We're not doing that with our pals, right? that was the main thing for me. And again, I almost wish I hadn't read the book first. I wish I'd waited, because I think I would have appreciated a little bit more, just because it wasn't necessarily that original, which doesn't take away from it at all. But we've seen it 1,000 times before, and we've seen it better. So yeah, that's really all I had. Like Kellen, before we came on the show, while I'm thinking about it, I think we're going to ask Adam to come on when we do Toxic Avenger, since he's writing the novelization for Trauma. So anyways,
his sister died cliff jumping. That was also mentioned in the movie.
That was in the very beginning.
That's right.
But I thought that was a party. I still feel like Cole was responsible somehow.
No, it wasn't like he was responsible, but it was the dad blamed him because he was supposed to be watching her.
Okay. Yeah, so it does tie into what your question. There's a lot more information in that area. But anyways, we'll go around, give our rankings, and close up shop. Kellen?
Yeah. I think it's a fine film. I mean, I think it doesn't reinvent the wheel. It's a comfort slasher. I can see why when John said it earlier, and then Jay mentioning Thanksgiving, the events that happen in the beginning of Thanksgiving would have been more of an incentive for a town to turn on kids, and that's kind of the reason they turned on those kids. They didn't develop the hatred for these kids. They made a couple of, especially the blonde girl, horrible. So you would hope for her to die, but then they have her die in probably the funniest way in the whole film when she gets stabbed. And I hate you, Quinn. But yeah, that's where I feel like the movie could have been 20 minutes longer. I think 10 minutes in the middle for more kills, because there's a lot more kills in the book. So if you like to read,
and there's more of a twist
this,
there too.
Yeah. Read the book, because you're going to see a lot more death. The surprise that there's multiple Frendos doesn't happen until until we get to the big climax of the movie where everyone just starts getting murdered. And 10 minutes devoted more to the beginning of explaining why the town would hate these kids, because it wasn't just a couple of videos. It was like just constantly pulling pranks in town, constantly doing things that was just pissing off the people and making this quiet Mayberry like town a roaming hellscape for anybody over the age of 40. So, like I said, I hope the next movie gets a little bit longer running time so they can develop, especially because there's so much more that happens in the second one, and so much more that they can do if they give it time. I also agree with John. I feel like books need to be miniseries. Any book that you've seen that's been done really well recently has had a mini series run, at least 8 episodes, because 10 hours of read time translates into a mini series. And you can even break it down and remove some things if you want, but it's a lot better development of the characters, a lot slower burn, a lot better. That being said, I give it a 3. It's a fun movie. I can't wait for the second one just because I hope that they do it justice as well. And because I just love the books. So I'm a little biased, but I give it a 3.
That you saying that reminded me of, in the book is the best part when you get the reveal of there's more Frendos. That's the best part in the book. One of the best parts.
Yeah, because there's like several scenes, almost like Scream, where somebody gets killed by a friendo, somebody gets killed by a friendo, somebody gets killed by a friendo, somebody gets killed by a friendo.
Chapters are like that, yeah.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden, there's 2 of them. Wait, there's 4.
Yeah, that was that reveal was much better in the book. All right,
Yeah.
John, or sorry, TJ.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this is one of the few movies where we all probably pretty much agree for the most part. It doesn't reinvent the wheel. It does what it does really solidly. It's not the best slasher of all time. It's not even the best 90s or 2000s era slasher of all time. But for what's coming out now and the audience is intended for, it does exactly what it needs to do. And I think it lays enough of a foundation to really build and even get better with sequels and a series that I hope they get to make. I think the audience I viewed it with the writer, obviously the creator of this whole mythos, and the audience that was all people that basically just went to a horror con all weekend long, probably shaded my experience of it a little bit more. A lot of the moments hit probably a little different than however you guys probably watched it. So I have a little more biased having only seen it that one time right now. So I'm going to give it a 3.5. I think it's very rewatchable for me. And we'll see it in repeating viewings. I will buy the Blu-ray when it comes out if it maintains that. But
And throw away the case like a monster.
right, hey, I'm moving. I gotta
You were doing that before you
consolidate,
were moving.
but I'm always moving in my heart.
John.
I think it's going to improve as the series goes along. I think they'll improve on the films. It's a solid 3 out of 5 for me. The one thing that I was curious about at the end, and I don't want to give spoilers, but if this is a book spoiler, but at the very end of the movie, it's like what time's lapse, they're going to college. Does it explain in the book like what happens before that? Like, do they question, hey, do we stay in this town? Do we leave? Because that was like the first thing I thought at the end was like, I would not stay in this fucking town. I would get out of it. Even if the mayor was gone, I would get out of there. But I'm assuming there's probably enough material to explain what happens. I didn't know if that explained at all.
As soon as we get the TJ keep it spooky, I'll let you know.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, I didn't want to spoil it for readers, so yeah.
Yeah, well, we've already spoiled enough for readers, but I give it a 3 too. Again, I'll buy it. I loved it. I probably would have liked it more. It'd probably been a 3.5 if I hadn't read the book. Yeah, it would have been a good series, especially since there's 3 books already and another one coming. But yeah. All right, so that gives us a 3. Clown in a Cornfield, 3 out of 5. That's going to do it for this episode. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, to wherever you're listening to this podcast. Follow us on Instagram, join our Facebook group, and follow us on TikTok. Friday, the 30th, we're dropping our FrankenCon episode as a bonus with Count Drahoon, where we talked about Fright Night, kinda. I say kind of because the audio was kind of terrible. John and I sounded magnificent per usual, but everyone else was kind of mumbled. So we're just going to drop that one as a little bonus.
That's because the only mic that was working was Jay's mic, and John was next to Jay. And I tried my best to make it hearable, and I did the best I could. So
Well,
it is what it is.
The star gets the microphone. So, all right. So check that out if you can, if you want to. It was fun. We had a lot of time. We had a lot of fun doing that. We should probably do it again down the road properly. So, and come back next week with our summer kickoff episode with Finn Wolfhards. Hell of a summer. All right. Signing off. I'm Jay with John, Kellen, and TJ. And until next time.
Keep it spooky and stay out of cornfields, kids.